Hi, welcome to another Roboflow training movie. In this training movie, I will show you how to create a workflow that imports metadata from a tab-limited text or a comma-separated text. Basically, in this kind of import, you have two different styles. One style is that the text file that you want to import has a header file in which on row 1 for every column you specify the field in which you want to store this particular column value. This is not the type of import we're going to cover. In the one we're going to cover is where you agree upon a fixed number of columns in a fixed order, so that every import file has exactly the same format. This gives you a little bit less flexibility, but ensures you that you're not depending on users typing in the right column header above every column. So how can this workflow work? I created a hot folder workflow, so a folder that watches a drop folder, a hot folder in which the files are dropped. You can specify the folder, select a folder. I made sure that I only use the application folder, so it's very easy to exchange this workflow to somebody. Then you can add a folder filter, a file filter. I say that, for instance, you only accept .tab files or .txt files, and then in this workflow you have to define which column is what. When it's processing it, it has to know in column 1 or column 2 or column 3. So you specify here the column you want to pick up for the Cumulus record field you want to set. Why are we not just specifying here a column number? We could do that as well, but this gives me the flexibility to maybe concatenate two columns, or to take a part of a first column and a part of a second column and concatenate this. Or so I can use some inline scripting instructions to make a more refined extraction of information. This one is very simple. I created a tab-limited text file in which in the first column I have the name of the record name. The second column has a category I want to assign. The third has the keywords, and the fourth has the status. So record name, categories, notes, keywords, notes, and status. So I don't pick up the value of column 1 for my assignment, but I pick it up for the query. So I defined the query. I'm saying record name equals, again, this gives you full flexibility. Maybe you want to do a combination of a part of column 1 and a part of column 2 to be able to find the file. Could be you have a skew in there instead of the record name. It could be that it is the record name without the file extension. So instead of the equals, you could do a starts with. So it keeps your options open. Here we have the catalog name in which we're going to import. Later in this training movie, I will show you also how you can make that part dynamic as well. And then such tab-limited text file still might have header rows that you want to skip, so you can define here that they are allowed to have a title row or not, or even 7 title rows if you prefer, and so you can specify the number of rows it doesn't process. Then something I added for debug purposes, you can enable the export of the information that is being processed to the log file, so that you get a good feedback of which records were processed. And then finally, I defined a target folder. When somebody drops in a file, when it's processed, I want to make sure that I pick up that file, that I don't lose it, so that I have a traceability of what files were imported. Let's have a look at the script. So for each file being dropped in the drop folder, this is the action script that is going to be executed. And I open the catalog. I could just select here the sample catalog if this is the sample catalog, but then I make a hard-coded choice in my script, and I prefer to have no fixed catalog names, field names, and that kind of stuff fixed in my script. So that's why I defined the catalog name here, and I'm picking it up in the script itself. Whenever you have an open, you have to make 100% sure that you have a close catalog. And then the next thing I'm doing is I'm storing the target folder that I defined here, so that I can, it checks if it exists. If it doesn't, it creates it. I just want to be able to, in the next instruction, make a copy of the file being dropped there. So making sure that I never lose it, it copies it to the processed folder. Then the next thing I want to do is I have what I call my import field map that we had a look at a moment ago, where this is a tab limited text parameter file in which I defined which column value goes where. So I'm reading this into memory. So I'm saying store this file first. I'm first picking up the file as an object, because the next instruction needs that file object, variable of file to process, to read it. You see that you have here tab limited text or comma separated, semi-comma separated, depending on how it is delivered. If this ever needs to change, if you're saying mines are not tab limited but something else, you can come into the script and change it. When you store a text file as a table, there's two kinds of table fields you can work with. Either you can say that the order in which it is processed is important, and then you say it has a sort order. It doesn't have to sort it, it has a sort order. So you want to process the rows in those, or in that order that they were entered. A second type of table you could have is a lookup table, where you say, okay, for instance, column number 1 will have the search value, and then it is not processed in order, but it gives you a lookup functionality to find a value maybe in such a parameter table. In this case, it is just sorted. We want to process row by row, so we don't have a search column, and we're storing it under a field table. The parameter file that has come in is exactly the same. So here is the tab limited format that you can change for the import file. Each file that is processed by a hot folder workflow is called hot, is available as under the object hot. That's why I can select this here, and that's my import table. So I have a field table and import table. I'm starting a line counter, so I'm initializing it to 0, and now I'm going to process every row of my import table, and I call it import row. Every line will be available under import row, and we see that we're using that variable here, import dash row between brackets 1. So this is picking up the value of column number 1, which, as you remember, was the record name. So I'm incrementing, I'm saying, okay, I'm going to process row number 1. And so I'm incrementing this line counter with the value 1. And then I'm testing if this counter is greater than, is a number that is greater than the rows to skip. So if the rows to skip is set to 0, then 1 is bigger, so it's going to process row 1. If you set rows to skip to 1, then it will skip the first row. And in that case, it will go to the else here, and else I just test if you want to debug information. So yes, then it writes some extra information saying row number X is skipped. Then the next part is when we know that we want to process this, then we are storing the query. So we are going to pick up this value that you defined, and we are going to store it in a text. So this way it's nicely evaluated. Any lookup fields, etc., are executed, processed, so we come up with a clean query now. And then I'm testing if debug is enabled, and if debug is enabled, I'm writing that information to the log. Then the next thing I'm doing is testing if the query is empty, because this workflow gives you also the opportunity to import the metadata from the delimited text file into an empty record. So if you left your query field empty, then it will just create a new record with this instruction, with that action, and then it stores the record ID, and then it stores a query, because you still want to process records, that new record in that case. So what I'm doing in that case is I'm searching for the record with ID equals to my ID, which is the variable I just picked up from the new record. So that's only in case you want new records. If you don't want new records, it won't go into this section, and it will just perform the query that you had here, and it will find or not find the records you want to process. Then it goes right in here and it stores the record name, because we want again to be able to debug log that we found record X. So here we are writing with the notification action, write text to log. And so then we are going now to process rows of another table, of the field table. So the field table containing the mapping from which row do you want to store in which cumulus field value. And then I'm saying store column. I'm picking up the column. I'm saying I want to pick up the first column from that, which contains which value I want to set. So I'm calculating the value this way, and I'm doing the same thing for column number 2, which contains the cumulus field name. And then I'm testing if the field name is not empty. If you have an empty row in there, you're not going to set anything, so we're skipping it. And then I'm also testing if the field value is not empty. And so test text, it's a text test equals, and it says equals to blank, but it's actually not equals, because we prefix it with an exclamation mark. So if it's not empty, then we will process. And what are we processing? Well, we're simply setting the field value. We're saying field name equals field value. So a very easy and straightforward workflow. And so if we now take our test file and drop it in here, then we can now say start and see what the process is doing. So if we go show log, we can see here that it found the file, processing row, record name equals, and then it says record new record not found. So somewhere in our instruction we made a mistake when setting field value or picking up a field value. So what we have to do is take a look at our script, and here inside the script, you can always make your script a little bit bigger to make it readable, easier to read. We're doing find. This process records in collection returns a hot record, so each record found will be processed. And here I made the mistake by picking up the object from the new record, which doesn't exist in this case because there was no new record created. And then we just make sure that when we're setting the value here, we also don't get an error. And here we are setting the hot, which is correct. So let's drop our file again. You will notice that we have now it in backup, so we didn't lose it. It has nicely copied it to the processed folder. And here we go. Start. Show log. And everything was nicely processed here. So if we have a look in our Cumulus catalog, we can see that it set the nodes, it set the keywords, and it set a category here, where it is here, EPS. For the EPS, we can see that category as well here. Sorry, that's keywords, category, format, and you can see, and it has those 3 records assigned, each with the individual value that we've defined here, $categories format. You could also skip this $categories and put this as a field name, and so it would do that as well. You can also have multiple categories in here separated by semicolons. Now for a final challenge, let's assume that the catalog name is different for or could be different for every row, so that we specify the catalog name in the test file. So if I do it this way, sample catalog, and I add it as a separate catalog, and actually I'm gonna add it at the end so it doesn't influence my other stuff. You could put it wherever you like. There we go, like this. So if you want to be able to do this, oh, I need to add a tab. There we go. If you want to use this instead of, well, very simple, column 1, column 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is column 6. So what we can do is in our workflow now, we can say, okay, I want this not to be hard-coded, but I'm going to pick up the catalog name. I'm going to say this catalog name is like this, and I'm going to say column 6. Okay. Now, of course, I need to change my script, and that means that I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to say new, and I'm going to say I'm going to store the previous name of, so store text. What am I going to store? I'm going to store a variable saying the previous catalog name of the previous row that was cataloged equals nothing. So I'm going to say that this equals nothing. And then when I'm processing the rows, I'm going to say that I'm storing this catalog name. The variable is called Cumulus catalog. And so I'm going to store it as soon as I know that I want to process this row. So we know that we want to process a row, and even before we do the query, we are going to say I'm going to store that. So I'm do a copy paste because it's the same kind of action I want to do. I'm going to say I want to pick up the Cumulus catalog and I'm calling it catalog, my catalog, whatever. And always add the necessary comment to your script so it it is easier to read, so you don't have to go into every instruction. You can nicely read here the right side of your help. And now, before we're going to do the query, I want to know if the current catalog is there. So what I need to do is I need to open a catalog. Now I'm first going to check new, and I'm going to say test if text, just text. I'm testing. What am I testing? If the previous catalog equals the current catalog, which is my catalog. My catalog. Where is it? A little bit further down here. My catalog. That's the variable I created. So is the previous catalog. So if it's the same, I don't have to do anything. So I have to go into the else. And so I could now leave this as an empty instruction, but what's the point? I don't want to do anything if it's empty. So I'm going to say not test if catalog is different. If we're picking up a different catalog, then I want to be, I'm going to close the previous one. I first need to check if the previous catalog already was a catalog, or if I'm processing row 1, then I don't have to close anything because it was not there yet. So I'm going to say new, and I'm going to say conditional test text, and I'm going to pick up previous catalog, test equals, so test if previous catalog is not empty, because then I know I have a catalog to close. So not means that I have to do this. If it's empty, I don't have to close the previous catalog. So there we go. So I'm going to say copy and paste. Now I'm going to open my catalog. I already had that instruction in here, so I'm going to cut, because I don't want it over there anymore. So I'm saying cut. And now I'm going to paste it. And in this case, I was using Cumulus catalog from the parameters, but now in this case, I'm doing my catalog. Good. And I also need to store in my catalog, sorry, in previous catalog, I need to store my catalog. So I'm going to pick up where I did the previous catalog here, copy. And right after I open it, I'm going to paste in the value and say, look, my previous catalog is my catalog. There you go. Equals my catalog. And that's how simple it is. Now, one final thing I would like to do is this. I'm going to copy, because also at the end of the script I want to close my catalog, but only if the previous catalog was not empty. Could be that you have a text file in which you don't have anything to process, and otherwise this would just end up with an error. So quickly doing this again. Parameters, we are picking up the catalog name from column 6 of each row. We started by storing for this text file the previous catalog as blank, nothing, to tell, hey, we didn't open a catalog yet. And then process rows, and now I see that I've put this in here, which was not the point. We should, of course, close the catalog at the very end. So that's what I ended. If this is empty, no catalog was open, so I don't need to close anything, but I'm saying not empty, then I know there is an object, a catalog object that I need to close. And then for each row, instead of having already the catalog open as we had in the previous version, now as soon as we know that this is a row that we want to process, we are picking up the value which was stored there, which is this, and it evaluates it. It says, okay, now I'm picking up from column number 6, and then I'm saying, okay, what you picked up, is this different? If it's not different, then just go on. We're still in the same catalog, but if it's different, then here we go. Okay, so if we run this particular workflow, it should result in exactly the same thing. So let's go and find out. Where are we? Here is our folder. So let's now pick up this variation. I'm going to call it with catalog. And I'm saying here Control C, Control V, and there we go. And I say start the workflow. And let's see if we didn't make any mistakes. Let's have a look at the logging. And what we can see is we have test file with catalog.txt, and it has found exactly the same 3 rows and has, without any errors, been able to open and close the catalog. So this was a nice variation where the column 6 contained the catalog name, and so we had the catalog name dynamically. If you don't need that, you just fill in sample catalog here, hard-coded, or select whatever catalog it needs to be, and it will run just as fine with this workflow. So that's how this can work for you. Let me know if you have any questions, and otherwise thank you for joining this training movie. See you in the next one.